From the 1970s through the mid-80s, Alaska became a popular destination as people flowed north to build the Alaskan pipeline, leading to a population boom. High-paying oil jobs drew thousands of workers looking for a fresh start, including many young women who turned to prostitution as a way to make money. Two off-duty Anchorage police officers are out hunting moose near the Connecticut River, about 20 miles from Anchorage. While following animal tracks, they come across a dug hole. When they look inside, they see human remains and some scattered clothing. Both leave the scene undisturbed and contact the authorities. The next day, Alaska State Troopers arrive to collect evidence. They recover a piece of clothing, an elastic bandage, and a .223 caliber shell. Dental records identify the remains as 23-year-old Sherry Morrow, a stripper who had been reported missing a year earlier. It's clear to them that the scene is a homicide. What they don't know is that they've unwittingly discovered the work of one of Alaska's most prolific serial killers. "17-year-old Cindy Paulson, a prostitute, is working the streets at night when a car pulls up beside her. The man inside is about 6 feet tall, wearing glasses, and has a noticeable stutter. He offers her $200 to get in, and she agrees. As soon as Cindy enters the car, the man quickly handcuffs her and presses a revolver to her head, threatening to kill her if she screams or tries to escape. He drives her to his house and then takes Cindy to his basement. The place is well kept and filled with hunting trophies. There's also a chain hanging from the ceiling. He chains Cindy to it, strips off her clothes, and assaults her for hours. Afterward, he goes upstairs to take a nap. When he returns, he tells Cindy that he's taking her to his remote cabin in the wilderness, claiming that he has an alibi and that his friends will lie for him if needed. He drives her to Merrill Field Airport, where his plane is waiting. When they arrive, he starts loading the plane and warns Cindy not to move from the front seat of the car. But when his back is turned, Cindy realizes this might be her only chance to break free. Barefoot and handcuffed, she runs to the nearest street and manages to flag down a passing truck. The driver stops and Cindy jumps inside, saving her life. The motorist drops Cindy off at her motel apartment. The desk clerk immediately calls the Anchorage police. On the way to the hospital for an examination, Cindy insists on stopping at the airport to point out the airplane she saw earlier. She positively identifies it.
We had a security guard stop us and describe the car the same way that Cindy had described the car, and in fact gave us a license number. That license number confirmed the address, or the area at least, that Cindy had given us regarding where the house was.
Police go to the address to speak with the owner of the car. They arrive just moments before he pulls up, driving the same vehicle described by Cindy. They stop him and ask to speak with him. According to motor vehicle records, the car Cindy was abducted in belongs to a man named Robert Hansen, a baker in Anchorage. Hansen matches the description she provided. He calmly answers every question the police ask. He tells them that from 5 p.m. to 11:30 p.m., he was at a friend's house repairing a seat for his airplane. After that, he went to another friend's home and stayed until around 5:30 a.m. Then he went to the airport to install the seat. Hansen also gives the police permission to search his house. The house matches Cindy's description exactly. but that only proves she had been there, not that Hansen assaulted her inside. The police find no evidence to support her claims. However, they do notice a loose-fitting wall panel. Behind it, they find a collection of weapons, but that isn't surprising since Hansen is a hunter. They also find a revolver, but it doesn't match the one Cindy described. The gun, the handcuffs, and the blankets she said she was wrapped in are nowhere to be found. Hansen's car is also searched, but it's just as clean.
Those alibis were corroborated, verified, and Mr. Hansen was released after a consent search of his house.
At the police station, Cindy is given a photo lineup of a few suspects, and she is able to pick out Hansen's picture. But when offered the chance to take a lie detector test, she refuses. Because she's a prostitute, she has an inherent distrust of the police, and in the same way, the police don't really trust her. Cindy knows no one is taking her seriously. Soon after, she leaves town. Anchorage authorities decide to drop the case as well.
I found out because the alibis were corroborated and because they had a problem with Cindy Paulson appearing and disappearing, and of course her lifestyle left a lot to be desired, that the case had been suspended.
But Officer Greg Baker believes her story and refuses to let it go. Cindy's claim that she was about to be put on a plane only reinforces his growing suspicions about Hansen.
He had taken her to the airport where he was going to fly her out with the story that if she maintained her helpfulness, that he'd bring her back and let her go. Well, Cindy was bright enough to know that she was on a one-way trip, and so was I. And so I kind of just put two and two together and figured that he was a very good suspect for the missing dancers.
In the year following, 1982, after the off-duty officers discovered the body of Sherry Morrow, more women began to turn up. On September 2nd, 1983, during road construction, a crew unearthed human skeletal remains not far from where Morrow's body had been found the previous year. The bones had clearly been there for some time, yet this area of the Connecticut River had been so remote until recently that it could only be accessed by boat or light plane. The remains were identified as those of 17-year-old Paula Goulding, an out-of-work secretary who had moved to Alaska from Hawaii. She had been missing for 5 months. Like Sherry Morrow, she had taken up a job as a stripper to make ends meet. And like Morrow, a .223 caliber cartridge was discovered at the scene. For Alaska State Trooper Wayne Van Clausen, the connection was disturbing.
And that's about when everything started to become kind of scary for everybody, because the profile was the same. They were topless dancers from the clubs downtown, but that was certainly when there was the belief that there was a serial murderer out there.
On the surface, Robert Hansen seemed like an upstanding citizen. He had moved from Iowa to Anchorage 16 years ago, where he opened a bakery that quickly became a huge success. He had a wife and children, and aside from his stutter, he fit in perfectly. When he wasn't working, Hansen enjoyed flying his Super Cub Piper and spending time in the wilderness.
Bob the baker. The troopers and the police used to go to his donut shop all the time. It was a very popular place to go. He had a bakery. People knew him. He was friendly. He was just a hard-working guy.
However, when Greg looked into his background, he found that Hansen had an extensive criminal history. 12 years earlier, in 1971, he had been arrested twice for kidnapping, rape, and assault with a deadly weapon. Crimes strikingly similar to what Cindy Paulson had described. Greg knew he couldn't bring this information to his supervisor, as Cindy's case had been officially suspended. That left him with no alternative.
And at that time, I gathered up all the reports and background that I could find on Mr. Hansen and carried it over to the troopers.
But there was one big problem. There wasn't any proof. While Hansen was a violent sex offender, nothing in his record suggested he was capable of murder. There was no direct connection between him and Sherry Morrow, Paula Goulding, or any of the other missing women. At this point, the troopers didn't even have enough evidence to obtain a search warrant, so they go looking for help.
We knew we had a mass murder on our hands. That was not something Alaska had any experience with. Somebody obviously knew that the FBI not only had experience with it, but had set out this unit that was designed specifically to try to assist in discovering who these people were.
The FBI turns to Cindy Paulson again. This time, she's able to help much more. She identifies a specific gun Hansen had in his possession. They also begin searching for another woman who may have been one of Hansen's victims years earlier. Her story was nearly identical to Cindy's.
I had gotten a call from Alaska asking if I would like to maybe help with a conviction for Mr. Hansen. They had explained to me that he had killed, to the best of their knowledge, 7 women. And they explained to me that the last woman had broken free.
At this point, the FBI is almost certain Hansen is the man they're looking for. They decide to bring him in for questioning while searching his house at the same time. But it's not going to be as easy as it sounds. To get a search warrant, they need to list specific items they believe will be in his home, like the gun Cindy Paulson described and the one that fired the bullets found in the graves of Sherry Morrow and Paula Goulding. But even that isn't enough on its own.
Yes, some of the research findings is we're dealing here with a serial killer. And serial killers, it starts off as fantasy. And one of the things to keep the fantasy going after the crime is because they're on the hunt nightly looking for victims, is they take some type of memento. We call them either souvenirs or trophies. Something belonged to the victims.
A police car is parked in front of Hansen's bakery. They're waiting for him. He's gotten off to a late start, but like usual, he pulls up and parks his car. The police get out of their vehicle and ask him to come in for questioning. He doesn't resist. At the police station, the interrogation room is ready for him, designed for as much psychological impact as possible. They hope he would elicit a confession and avoid a long legal case.
You finally get them talking. They start giving you that 1,000-yard stare. They're back 10 years ago, 20 years ago when they were perpetrating the crime. And they kind of lock into that 1,000-yard stare. And their memory is just so precise. And the fantasy is what keeps them going over and over and enables them to survive when they're incarcerated. So I got to tap into that. It takes time, but once I'm in there, I get tremendous information.
As officers work to get Hansen to confess, other investigators show up at his house to search the place. His wife is home, so they're extra careful, recording everything. At the same time, teams head to Hansen's bakery and the airport to check out his plane, but they don't find anything useful. During questioning, Hansen stays calm. He talks about his rough childhood and admits to picking up prostitutes in the 70s, but insists he never hurt or threatened any of them. Back at the house, in the bedroom, searchers find an aerial map of the area. It's marked with 37 hexes, and the marks line up with places where bodies have been found. Then they move to the attic. Hidden under the insulation are several weapons, including a .2, 2.3 Ruger Mini 14, the same type used to kill Sherry Morrow and Paula Goulding. The team calls it in right away. Hansen starts to wonder if they really do have something solid, but still doesn't give in. He figures it might just be a bluff. While officers are still going through the house, a woman from the neighborhood stops by, curious about all the police cars. She asks what's going on, and when the officers tell her that Hansen is being accused of murder, she understands how serious the situation is. She then admits that her husband had given Hansen an alibi, but that it wasn't true. Later, her husband calls the police himself and admits he lied, retracting the alibi completely. Back inside, searchers find the most important evidence they've been looking for this whole time: Hansen's trophies. Among them is Sherry Morrow's necklace and other personal belongings tied to missing women. With enough evidence to at least charge Hansen with the kidnapping and assault of Cindy Paulson, his bail is set at $500,000.
Looking at the map obviously was pretty chilling because we believed the map. The map was a body count as far as we were concerned. The man had kept track. He didn't have newspaper clippings. He had the map.
When the troopers believe they have enough evidence to convict Hansen of at least 4 murders, they confront him and his lawyer. Hansen can't refute the evidence. He has nowhere left to hide. It's time to confess and cut a deal. He agrees to confess to the murders that can be proven on the condition that the trial receives no publicity and his family is left alone. He demands to be imprisoned outside of Alaska once the trial is over. In exchange, he agrees to show the troopers where more bodies are buried. I know right now you all have one big question. How exactly did he kill his victims? Well, after his victims were kidnapped in the same way Cindy Paulson was, Hansen would drive or fly them to a remote forest. This is where his sick games would begin. The victims were blindfolded, with no idea where they were. Hansen would intentionally let them go, making them think they had a chance to escape. He would hunt them for hours, wounding them first, before finally